about seating patients with Huntington's disease. So just a quick welcome. For those of you who haven't joined before, just give you a little bit of information about us at Vivid Care. We've been supporting the healthcare sector here for over 50 years. Our mission is to enhance lives by advancing care. So we look for options and new products in the marketplace that can actually help that. We specialize in seating, falls protection, rehabilitation, and mobility, and we are actually part of a larger group with another sister company called Care Concepts, another one called Dependal, and another one called Aquadapt. So I'm afraid we've got an apology this afternoon. Unfortunately, Justine can't make it. We had a cancellation at the last minute, but we're going to continue anyway. Whilst we're not professionals, we've learned an awful lot on the journey whilst we've been developing our new product, and we actually have some good learnings to share with you this afternoon. We want to thank the Huntington's Disease Association for their help with some of the content that they've been helping us to put together for this. So we'll go through something about some information about Huntington's, and then we'll go through how to seat people with Huntington's. And then at the end of it, we've actually got a live demo of the new chair that you can see in the picture there. So Huntington's disease, I'm sure many people on here will know much about it, but it's a hereditary disease, and symptoms normally start between 30 to 50, but there is juvenile Huntington's as well, which can start younger. And patients normally only have a lifespan of around 15 to 20 years after their symptoms start. So it's quite a tragic disease. It is genetic. So obviously this can come through from either parent. And interestingly, one of the reasons I started developing this chair was we actually had a family of 3 brothers who we supplied who had Huntington's, and sadly they've all passed away now, but we did a lot of work with them for various pieces of equipment, and it just really sparked an interest in this disease and seeing what it can actually do to people, and seeing how we could actually help them in their journey. So there's around 1 in 10,000 people carry it, so that's about 8,000 people in the UK, and there's about 32,000 people at risk. There's currently no cure, but there's a lot of research going on into it at this moment in time. There's some very, very good information out there. Obviously, there's Huntington's Disease Association, who we mentioned previously. There's also the European version, EHDN, and there is the American Huntington's Disease Society. These have all got some really good references on their website, some very useful information. And I'd encourage everyone, when you get the slides, to actually have a look on there if you haven't done already. So it's a family disease. This is something that we've found whilst we've been doing the research. We see the impact on the family. It's spread much wider than just the person who has it. And obviously, with it being hereditary, it can affect the generations. So sometimes Huntington seems to come from nowhere, but often that's because a carrier may have died earlier of another cause. That's why sometimes it can literally seem to have appeared from nowhere, but it is genetic. So the symptoms cover 3 areas. There's cognitive, behavioral, and physical. Now, cognitive symptoms often start before the physical symptoms. So you may find that people are getting confused. I'll just jump ahead a bit. It can manifest in many ways, but it can also kind of masquerade as other things. So it may not be immediately apparent that what is actually happened is Huntington's. So if you don't know that there's a genetic problem, then you may not realize initially that it is Huntington's. So that includes the impaired ability to think, focus, and reason and remember, and then in more extreme cases, psychosis. But sleep problems like insomnia, restless sleep, vivid dreams, it's all quite normal. And then you have behavioral. So again, some of these may seem quite typical. There's some really interesting videos on the HDA website by one of the people who was helping us and inputting into the design of the chair. She was actually on their OT, and she was making the point that often people are out at work, and it can appear just like a normal responses to stressful situations or difficult situations. But then after that, the physical situations, physical symptoms can start appearing. So one of the key ones is obviously the involuntary jerking and the switching movement. So this is similar to Parkinson's. It's called chorea as a technical term. But obviously, by this stage, it is quite obvious that there is something wrong. So often, in this case, the coordination and the balance is going, which can obviously make just life more difficult. There's often there's weight loss despite calorie intake because the movements are burning the calories, and then speech can obviously decline as the disease progresses to the point where they can actually become non-verbal. And then they have difficulty in regulating their temperature. So they may appear hot or cold, and it's kind of important to keep an eye on that for their comfort. So in terms of approaching seating assessment for those with Huntington's, obviously many people on here will be involved in seating already. So there are a number of commonalities with other assessments that might need happening. But some of the key points with Huntington is to observe the movements and areas of misalignment. So obviously, if you've got a lot of movement, that can lead to more misalignment, and it's kind of how to minimize that, and then to look at the pain points and the skin vulnerabilities. So if they're always moving a particular pattern, then maybe looking for something which can minimize that movement to reduce the pressure on the skin. It's important to look at what stage they're at in their disease. So, they may be standing transferred, they may be hoisted. We need to contemplate what's going to happen to them as the disease progresses. And obviously, it's important to get as many people involved as possible in that. So if you can have an OT, a physio, a seating specialist, a carer, there's a wealth of knowledge that can be shared if you can get people together. So the goals are obviously the same as they are for other patients, and this is really critical. That with Huntington's particularly, they have to have the proper support and alignment. We need to be able to help them passively counteract the involuntary movements because that can do so much damage to them. We obviously want to keep them safe, so reducing the risk of falls, making sure they can't get out of the chair. We want to be able to enable their daily living activities to continue in the same way as they always have done, as much as possible. And then from a caregiver's point of view, we want to make sure they are comfortable being able to move people safely so that they're not straining themselves, they're not putting themselves at risk as well as a patient. So the typical kind of movements we'd see with advanced Huntington's are twisting and arching and writhing. So as they can't control the muscles, they would move around a lot. And what studies have shown is that as they struggle to communicate through either the cognitive issues or the non-verbal, then they get more anxious, and as they get more anxious, these involuntary movements increase. So it's very important to be able to actually make sure that the patient feels like they're secure and that they are comfortable and that they have the feeling of being cocooned. There's also a lot of, as the weight comes off, there can be wastage, which can decrease their strength, it can lead to more exposed bone, which obviously we then need to counteract. So the risk of fall and injuries is quite high. So this can happen in early stages whilst the patient is still standing transferred because their balance is impaired. So they may be going to get into a chair and they don't quite get into it properly. And if the chair isn't suitable for them, they could actually fall over the edge of the arms or something like that. As the condition progresses, then there is a possibility that the movements will actually make them come out of the chair entirely. So it's important that they're cocooned and they're quite a long way down in the chair with some protection around there. Obviously, as a result of the falls, and because of the disease, they have much more susceptibility to the bruising and the skin trauma. So a fall which may not be such an issue for a well-bodied person may actually cause much bigger issues for someone with Huntington's. So we're now talking about selecting the right chair for those with Huntington's. So as we covered already, we need to reduce that risk of injury, and there's a number of ways we can do this. So one of the key aspects that we need to look at is stability. As we've seen, the involuntary movements and the balance, the impaired balance, they can lead to a lot of unexpected movements. And if the chair is not stable, then we need to make sure, if the chair's not stable, that can actually make that even worse. So we need to make sure you've got a stable platform for the patient to get into. We need it needs to be comfortable. We could make a really stable chair, but obviously if that's made with hard surfaces everywhere, as there is a lot of movement, people could actually be damaging themselves, which we really don't want to happen. And then because of the movement, then there is a possibility of entrapment. So this is in a normal chair, because of the involuntary movement, the limbs may move around. So you have to make sure that wherever limbs could move, that there isn't a risk of them actually getting into a corner or into some kind of damaged position where they're then able to do themselves an injury. As patients are going to be in the chair for a long time, we need to consider the pressure management. So the more movement there is, the more chance there is of shear and of skin rubbing against the fabric. So we need to make sure that whatever they're in is comfortable for long periods of time. You can also use the tilt in space function of a chair just to give that variety of angle. So you're changing the points where the pressure is on. And obviously the fabric is important as well. So with the fabric, especially with Huntington's, with the changes of patient temperature, it's really important to consider a fabric that is breathable, because as we know, in the chairs, if they're in them for long periods of time, if they're running hot, then there can be an accumulation of sweat, which if you get a buildup of that can cause ulcers. So having ventilation, having circulation of air is really important. We need a fabric which is also waterproof, because unfortunately incontinence is one of the side effects. So from a hygiene point of view, from a cleaning point of view, we need to be able to make sure that we're taking care of that aspect of it. One of the other things which is important is if a patient fastens on a gap or a seam or some kind of loose material, they can just repetitively go at that until they can actually, they don't realize necessarily what they're doing or the impact of what they're doing. But it's important to make sure they have smooth surfaces around them, where they can't kind of find anything to pick at or anywhere to put their hands or other limbs. So obviously, as we know, as we discussed, the disease is very progressive. So what starts off in one fashion, they could end up the patient could be in a very different shape and size by the time they've finished. So this can obviously, as a disease continues and they waste, then we need to be able to up the pressure relief options, for example. So we might need to move to something like a honeycomb gel, as we've got a moving there on the right hand side. We may also need to change the width or the depth, so that the chair can actually move with them, so that as their disease progresses. So with that, we come on to our new product. So we spent a long time developing this, over 18 months. We've been working with HDA and other companies, other neurocare centres, to get this right. And so we're just going to go through a brief introduction to this. So we've just got a brief video now. We developed a new chair, it's called the Lento Neuro, and it's designed for those with complex neurological disorders and especially those with involuntary movements. My name is Graham Oliver. I'm Commercial Director at Vivid, which includes responsibility for research and development. We found when we were trying to see patients with Huntington's and associated problems that we were finding that the chairs we had were not suitable, so we opted to develop a completely new product to solve this problem. When we were looking at the design of the new chair, we wanted something that would almost make the patient feel like they were having a hug from the chair. We know that studies have proved that patients who feel stable and supported actually have less involuntary movement, which in turn reduces stress on the body. So we wanted to try and emulate this within our design of our chair. We wanted to design a chair that wouldn't look out of place in people's lounges or else in residential care. So we wanted something which had the medical advantage but didn't look medical. So we've gone with a vinyl on the outside of the chair which looks like leather, and then on the inside of the chair we've gone a bit more technical. We've gone for a full-way stretch polyurethane wicking fabric. So this is designed to help patients remain comfortable if they're sat in the chair for long periods of time. The fact that the chair is adjustable means that it can be tailored to their condition as it changes. We also have the advantage that ours is extremely comfortable. It's been designed with comfort in mind. As standard, we're offering a medium pressure relief achieved by using visco foam in the seat base and the leg rest. We can also offer a high pressure relief with gel. We opted for 4 braced casters rather than the usual 2, with the optional additional casters on the separate footrest. We looked at every possible angle we could to ensure that they can't actually access any parts of any mechanisms or any parts of the frame. There's also optional extras such as head cushions and soft cushions and wedges. You can also get a different variety of colours and fabrics on the outside of the chairs. It is available from stock, so patients who have these conditions, they don't have to wait as it's adjustable. They don't have to resubmit for funding for a new piece of equipment. The chair can develop with them as their conditions develop. What excites me about the Lento Neuro is that the chair has been designed with the patients and the carers to ensure that we come up with a product which is right for the patient and also help them as much as we could in their condition. Yeah, so as we've as the video briefly covers there, so this chair has been designed, so there's 3 key principles to it. There's stability, security and comfort. So as we covered, the stability aspect of it is really, really important for making sure that the patients are able to use the chair safely and carers can be confident in it. And the security aspect is giving the patients that feeling, as we said there, like the idea that it gives them a hug, because we know that as communication becomes more difficult with a disease like Huntington's or other neurological, it's important that they feel safe, they feel secure. And then from the comfort point of view, it's really a key part of all the products that we do. If anyone's familiar with any of the Lento range, then it's the feedback we always get is the comfort. So we've covered off a lot of this detail here, but one of the key things is, as we've mentioned, it's adjustable. So whereas currently a lot of the chairs out there, you'd have to specify it and it depends on the people's progression. So you may be looking at someone who's standing and then if the disease progresses quickly, potentially by the time they've actually got their chair, then it may only be suitable in that position for a short amount of time before they actually need something that they can be hoisted from. We've tried to cover all those angles and make sure that we've got it all in one chair that can stay with the patient throughout their journey and then potentially beyond that journey to someone else. So it's not made bespoke for someone. Having said that, we have got the customization option. So we're conscious that patients may want to have a chair that fits in with their home. They may want it to blend in. It's important for the family to keep patients at home as long as possible. So it is available in other colors, both the outer and the fabric on the inside as well. We also for the acute setting or for any areas where infection control is really important, we actually offer a version whereby the instead of Velcro for the cushions and making the adjustments with those, we actually have a magnetized system, which gives a completely smooth and wipeable finish. So with that, we're now just going to switch camera to the live demonstration camera and run you through the actual chair itself. So this is a Lento Neuro, been a long time in developing, over 18 months. We focused on three things whilst we were doing it: stability, security and comfort. So from the stability point of view, one of the main things that we focused on was point of contact with the floor. So we've got 4 brake casters on the chair itself, and you can see that by applying the brakes to those, what we do is we give it a really strong, stable platform. So that means even if you're trying to move it, you really have to try very, very hard to actually move it. And in addition to that, we also put 4 brake casters onto the footplate. So that gives a total of 8 points of contact with the floor at any one time that are fastened in position. So just add the footplate on, you can then see what difference that makes. So for the patients who do move around a lot, the chair is very, very, very stable, very secure. To help with that, we've also opted, rather than having nuts and bolts, we've opted for having just welded construction. I'll show you that. So if we have a quick look around the back of the chair here, the frame, as you can see, is just all welded, so there's no nuts, no bolts, and it's a very wide frame and it's very, very low down to the ground. So that means the patients, even if they're throwing themselves side to side, the centre of gravity on the chair is very, very low, so they would really struggle to tip it. You'd have to come some real force to actually get it off the floor, as you can see. So that means we've got a really stable platform for patients, however they're transferred. So the chair has been designed to cope with people at different stages of their condition. So initially, patients would probably be standing transferred. So we've got a negative leg angle, which means they can get their feet right back and then they can come down comfortably into the chair. We've also designed it so that it will work with the most popular stand aids. So something like the Sarah Study, although you could use others. And we've designed it so you can get right out to the chair, and the patient can then just stand held in position and transfer. So from a safety point of view, it's very easy for the patients to get in and out, and also for carers. What we've also got is, obviously, as conditions develop, they may need to be hoisted. So you can see the patient can be hoisted in, and then we've actually got a gap down at the back of the chair here where caregivers can access slings and they can make the changes that they need to make there. So from the point of view of security, we designed the chair so that the arms remain at a fixed height, whatever position the back angle or the seat base is positioned in. So what this does in effect is it creates almost like a tub for the patient. So you can see as we lower it here, the back angle opens and the patient comes down into this cocooning environment here. We can obviously increase that as we change the back angle. So I'll just show you the difference between now and when the back angle is opened up. So as you can see, the back angle has now changed. So the advantage of this chair is that we can position the back angle in a number of different places, a number of different openness, if you like, of angle, depending on the patient's condition. So this is now in its widest angle, and we can see again that gap that we created for the hoisting is even more visible now. And the shape of the chair has got this much more bucket-like shape. So that is without the chair being angled down. And then if we actually put this down, we can see the type of position that we're starting to achieve is very, very good posturally. So there, and from a safety aspect, the patient is very, very close to the floor, so they feel secure, and the majority of the body is kept within the chair itself. So if we now add the foot plate on here, we can see the sort of shape that the patient is getting, which is almost like a zero gravity position. So we actually spin it round. And remove the arm. So we can see here, having taken the arm off, just how close the patient gets to the floor, but also the kind of angled shape that they will be in, which is obviously a really comfortable position. It's with the tilting spacer, it takes the pressure off the legs and the back, and just transfers the weight evenly throughout the whole body. So it's very good for them posturally. So just pop the arm back on. So from the point of view of comfort, we wanted to make sure that we make patients as comfortable as possible. So obviously one of the key factors of our Lento range is the comfort, but there's also the ability to change out different components. So by default, we wanted to go for a cushion fabric, which was quite an open weave, which allows patients who struggle to regulate their temperature to do so much easier. So we've got an open weave fabric there, but we're aware also of obviously side effects and challenges, things like incontinence. So we have got the option to swap it completely for Dartex, or to waterproof Dartex, or we can have part Dartex, part open weave. We can also swap completely the cushion system. So here we have a laterals, but we can actually swap for something like a cocoon backrest. So as patients' conditions develop, they may need something which gives them a slightly different effect. So we can add options, and this is all within the same chair. So we haven't actually changed anything about the construction of the frame. We've just changed how the chair actually operates. And then, as previously mentioned, we have adjustment for the width. So that's just done with a toolless environment. You take out the pins, front and back, and then the arms will just move in and out. And as you can see, there's still no entrapment issues. The patient is still securely held, but we've got an extra 4 inches of width on the product. We can also change the seat depth forwards and backwards by 3 inches as well. On the leg rest, rather than just having a standard leg rest, we've actually done some work on it to bring it to a better shape that actually matches what the patient requires more. So you can see we have these channeled leg rests here. The top of the foot block is actually made out of memory foam for long-term comfort, and the back of it, as you can see, is shaped to actually fit snugly and tightly within the chair here. We're aware of the issues surrounding entrapment and the ability of patients to actually move their limbs into positions which you wouldn't normally expect them to, and we paid a lot of attention to that. So we've made it so that there's no gap for the patients to get their fingers into and under the cushion, and there's firm padding all the way around any kind of contact surface. So it's all soft, all on the outsides, all around the front. So anywhere that patients may move or put their limbs, there's no chance of them hurting themselves. We've also made it so that when the back comes up, there's no, if the arms are down, there's enough gap here so that it just gently moves the arms up with them so they can't come to any damage. So that's it really.
And everyone, apologies, it looks like we've lost connection. Thankfully, I'm in a different office. So my name's Tristan. I'm the MD at Vivid Care, and I'll just try and jump in and cover off some of the questions that have been coming through on the chat. Apologies, there's been a few issues this afternoon with our guest speaker not able to join at last minute, and then these tech issues. But hopefully everyone's enjoyed the webinar and found it useful so far. So just continuing on as to the Q&As here. We've had some good questions on the chat, so thank you for submitting those. Question from Jane Watson here as to who funds the chair. So obviously it's like any chair assessment. It depends on which area you're in and the condition of the patient, etc. So they might be covered by continuing healthcare. But there's obviously we do deal with both private individuals and with social services themselves. So NHS could fund it, or the individuals themselves. I had a question from Rachel too as to visits to try this equipment with patients. We do certainly cover the whole country. We do have assessors out on the road, seating specialists, so we can certainly do that. To book an assessment, you just give us a call or send us an email and we can get something booked in. All the assessments are booked through the office here. But I would say that obviously with this new chair launch, we're already getting a lot of assessments being booked in and demonstrations too. If you do want your full team to see the chair, then certainly please do get in touch and we can arrange a lunch and learn session or a free demonstration over video. Up to and including what level of pressure sore does the foam cushion support, and what about the honeycomb one? So that's a question from Lindsay here, so thanks for that. So the foam, as we mentioned, is a visco foam, so like a memory foam. That's typically looked at as medium pressure relief. The honeycomb gel one will go up to high pressure relief. Now, I believe there is scope for an air cushion to be put in the chair as well, because it's actually a removable cushion in the seat base. So that could well be an option for very high relief as well. But obviously the key thing with pressure relief is to get the seat sizing right. So as Graham mentioned earlier, the seat depth, seat width, and all the measurements are fully adjustable, so we can get that seat measurements correct. Looks like we've got Graham back online again. Graham, I was just covering off on some of the questions here.
So yeah, does the product have a guarantee? Yes, they absolutely do. So the frame is warranted for 5 years. Fabrics are 1 year, but we've designed this product to be really, really robust. So as we covered earlier in the presentation about the construction of the chairs, we've got fully welded joints and everything. So there's an absolute minimum of any bolts or moving parts, because we know how crucial it is to ensure that this is a really stable and secure bit of kit that can stay with people for a long time. Question as to the cost of the chair. So the cost of the chair is around £3,000. Obviously, it depends on the options that go with it, the pressure relief options, etc. But it starts from just under £3,000. Question: is there a supplier in Ireland? We do have a distributor in Ireland, O'Neill Healthcare, and we can put you in touch with them. And then a question about, could we have a copy of the presentation? The presentation will be sent around along with other resources and everything from this session. And I think that is all the questions that are on the chat. If there isn't any more, then we'll move on. So, as mentioned, we will circulate them, and there is a whole pack here of information, and there's other resources apart from our own here, which can actually help understanding more about Huntington's disease. We've also got other resources on our website. So if any of your OTs and looking for some kind of justification templates or how to get a chair like this through funding, we have information like this, and there's plenty more resources. There will also, keep your eyes open, because there will also be other webinars on this subject from specialists. So thanks for joining, and I'm sorry that Justine wasn't able to join us today, but I hope what we've presented is useful to you, and look forward to hearing from people who are interested in the chair. Thank you very much, everyone.